Hey, this is Paulo, and this is Mind Your Own Business. Like, like you need to.
Yeah,
What I think is you need to have like the dedication of, all right, I'm going to do it. Like I don't know what to do, I don't know what to write about, but I'll do it. Anything. With time, it will become
the
better.
best time to start is when you have no followers because you got nobody to impress. It's just the repetition of doing it.
Right. Yeah, repetition is so key. Like if you think about building muscle, like that's a good metaphor of building something else, like a follower base or a business or a relationship. Like you can impress a girl, but she will fall in love not because of that, like that thing you did once, but the sum up of all of the things you've done, in years. So
I've used the metaphor with marketing as referencing to dating. So you can attract women in with the fancy cars and the cash and all that, but don't plan on getting a second date. Or you get the wrong lead. You get a bad lead because if she is attracted to those things, you're not gonna have any fun with her.
or what, in sales it's pretty similar. Like you can make a sale, but that won't mean, it doesn't mean that that's a customer. Like that person could be a bad customer. Like I don't want to do business with you anymore. I know you're giving me money, but it's not worth it. Or it could mean that I'm going to like that person is going to leave eventually. It was not a fit
Or
in the
or it
first place.
costs you or it costs you a lot of money or headaches. So if you attract that, it's like attracting that woman in with the fancy car and Lamborghini, external things, but then when she comes in, she ends up being a headache and costing you a lot of money.
Yeah, very, very toxic relationship. Uh, so, hey, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. Kevin in the house. He is the CEO and co-founder of Brandarrow. So, first question would be, who do you help?
Hey, thanks for having me, Pablo. To start off, Brandarrow, we help small to medium businesses. We focus on the SaaS industry to help grow their brand through paid advertising channels. We've been doing it for a couple of years now. Prior to this, 15-year, 16-year marketing veteran, worked at various different levels of corporations and startups. But yeah,
And like, what led you to the creation of your company? Was that a rude awakening? You just got sick and tired of the, 9 to 5. Maybe you have an entrepreneurial spirit since you were born. Like, how was that change?
yeah. I mean, I've always been very entrepreneurial. I mean, going back to my days when I was younger, I was the kid that would sell candy on the school bus, that type of stuff. I'm sure everybody has that same story. Uh, but I've always had this entrepreneurial drive, but I kind of took the safe route and got the 9 to 5 job and tried to do the entrepreneurial stuff on the side. And I kind of always was keeping one foot in, one foot out type of guy. Never went all in on the entrepreneur route. And then a couple of years ago, uh, after leaving the company, I was basically getting a bunch of demand from family and friends to do marketing for them. So it kind of organically just started happening, and I started doing like websites and other stuff that they needed help with. And then I kind of just made a decision like, hey, this is kind of a real thing that I can make happen. And I decided, you know what, it's time to just go all in. They call it burning the boats, like burn all the boats is the only direction you can go. There's no plan B. Let's go after it. And so a couple of years ago, that's kind of what happened. And now I'm a proud agency owner.
That's amazing. And I wanted to ask because that happened to me a couple of years ago. I had my own thing, right? And I was working my stable 9 to 5, right? and that company was sold, so we were all let go, right? And my thought then was like, great, this is the opportunity for me to like focus 100% on my thing. Now I have the time, have some money, nothing really, but I have the time and the will, so let's do it. I went bankrupt so hard because I didn't have enough resources. I had the time and the will, but I didn't have a plan, money. There's a follow-up question to this, which is how to make that switch from 9 to 5 to full like owning your own business, because I'm thinking, yeah, you should jump into the pool, but maybe not like having something in place. But that could be just me.
Yeah, the easiest way to answer that question is, you know, definitely you have to have a source of income. Unless you have a rich uncle, you're going to have that 9 to 5 to pay the bills. And if you're making, say, $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, that secondary side hustle, you need to get that up to that 50 to $100,000 a year mark before you go quit the 9 to 5. That's like the easiest way to answer that question. But couple things. One, I highly recommend anybody that wants to get into the entrepreneur space to go work at a startup. Don't go into a big corporation where you become a number in a cubicle and you're looking at spreadsheets all day.
So I'm curious. So let's say I have my side hustle, right? I'm doing something. I'm starting small. Maybe I'm building websites, or I'm, designing something, and I want to market myself. How would you go about personal branding, or how can I capture my first 3, 5 paying customers so I can fund it, I can reinvest? How, like, from 0 to 1, I think it's so hard. Like, and from a marketing standpoint, how can I do it? What can I do?
I mean, the first thing that I would do is try to find out who your ideal customer would be. Who would you really enjoy working with? And you could also serve too. Like, yeah, you enjoy working with, I don't know, the president of the United States, but can you serve that person? You got to find your ideal customer that you can serve with whatever it is that you're going to serve. Um, a lot of people are always like, oh, I want to do something with purpose and all that stuff. That's great, but you got to start somewhere. And I would try to find that ideal customer that you can actually solve a problem for first. Maybe it's not like this whole passion project type stuff. And then niche down as much as you possibly can. Get very specific about the problem that you're solving and who you're solving it for. Um, we live in, what is there, like 7 billion people on the planet now? I don't that might even be more now. But the more narrow you get, the better you're going to be able to actually talk to that person. And then versus being broad. Like for me, I could say I'm a marketing guy, right? But that doesn't really talk to anybody. But if I say I do paid traffic for SaaS companies, that's a whole nother thing. That's very specific.
That reminded me of, I'm sure you know Seth Godin. He talks about like the minimum viable audience. Like, go, like you said, like, go, not, instead of going broad, go niche, and find that minimum. Like, if you serve 5 people and they're so happy with your service that they pay you, and you can sustain that, you're golden. And then, of
Yeah,
course,
and I make the mistake too. Like, you make the mistake of going broad when you start out. But the thing about going super narrow that people are scared of is they're like, oh, I'm going to lose out on all these other opportunities. If you can gain some clients and gain some traction being super niche and narrow, it's easy to like expand it and go keep expanding it. You can start out solving that specific problem. And the next thing you know, you can go really, you can keep broadening your target audience, but it's better to really be very focused on who you're talking to.
right. And I'm curious to know, maybe in the marketing space, what are kind of the worst recommendations you usually hear out there?
Um, Gosh, there's a lot of them. One I just that comes to mind. I just had this conversation with somebody else about this, but the whole "fake it till you make it" thing kind of annoys me. I used to be that guy too that believed in it. There's a couple things behind this. One, internally, you're not going to feel good about yourself if you're faking it, and you're going to know it, and that's probably going to end up resonating. Other people are going to feel that, right? There's some whole energy thing right there. The other piece with that fake it till you make it thing is if you are, putting up this facade that you're like this guy, you're like the expert, whatever it is, and then you go into a situation and you start, failing with your clients and not doing what you thought you said you're going to do. There's the whole reputation thing there too. And that's like part of building your brand, right? So uh, my philosophy and all that is like, it's better to start slow and work yourself up than try to like be this person you're not. And then you can probably make some money doing that, but I don't think it's sustainable. You're going to get caught. Your reputation is going to slide. And so I don't know. That's one of my biggest things is that the "fake it till you make it" slogan isn't really the one that I used to think it was the coolest one. Let's go after it, but I don't think it's the right philosophy to go after.
And that I think that connects with the car like Ferrari or Lamborghini example metaphor we were using just now. Like that's fake. Like yeah, you can have that car. It should be a lot of fun, but it's not deep. It doesn't have any substance to it. Like right, you can attract the things you're not looking for. So you can attract this lady, all right, but that's not like the marriage you're looking for, like the healthy thing you're looking for. It won't come from that.
Yeah, you're going to attract all the wrong things. More people can relate to the David and Goliath story, like, or the Cinderella story where you came from nothing and you worked your butt off and then now you're, doing really well. More people relate to that story than, trying to talk about how you can one day own Lamborghinis and drive, fly helicopters. But that, and then like you said, it's all fake. And then what happens is, you're setting these bad examples for people. Some of it's real. Some people do have that kind of money and it's, fun and all that. But in the entrepreneur space, it can get dangerous. And I think, you specialize in this too, is it starts causing depression with people and they feel like failures. And in reality, most entrepreneurs, even successful ones, I know people that have made millions of dollars as an entrepreneur. They don't own the Lamborghinis and fly private jets and all that crazy stuff. They still live below their means. They're not doing all those crazy things. The people that are doing those things probably don't have the money to do it.
Yeah, and going back to marketing, I wanted to talk about platforms. So we do have Instagram, Twitter, like everything, right? You see that fake plastic life within these platforms, and you can also like sell and do marketing and do business within these platforms. But I'm curious to know, how do you like differentiate, like I want to not get involved so much with these platforms that that I lose track of myself, because as you said, like hey, if I compare myself to this person, yeah, I feel bad. I mean, I feel horrible. I don't have that. I want to have that. I want to be there. I want to travel, and it's constant. It's like every scroll, it's one sad news for your life, which is like, I don't know, walking your dog, taking out the trash, like simple stuff, but that's life. So I'm getting curious to know your thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary thing, especially now where, see, I grew up without social media. I'm that old. But now, kids are growing up and social media is in their life very early and they can be influenced at a very early age. Actually, if you've heard of Social Dilemma, the documentary, it kind of goes into all this. But a 5-year-old doesn't understand. Joe Rogan actually says this. He's like, a 5-year-old doesn't understand that the world isn't flat, it's round. And if they start watching YouTube videos that convinces them that the world is flat, like they'll think the world is flat. But myself, I understand that the world's not flat, and these videos can like tell me that, but I'm not going to like believe it. But it's the same thing with, talking about, seeing all these visions of people being super successful and showing their wealth. The thing about that is those people are showing those things because it's like clickbait, right? Like if I show you a wad of cash and the Lamborghinis and helicopters, and that's what a successful entrepreneur is, you're going to think you're a failure until you can afford the Lamborghinis and stuff like that. But in reality, a successful entrepreneur like doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like if you can, pay your bills and be in business for a year or two, that's a successful entrepreneur. You don't have to make millions of dollars. And I don't know what the stats are, but something crazy like, 90% of the business that are started fail within a year. So if you can get a business going and have it going for a year and pay your bills, that's success. You don't have to think that it has to be these atrocious numbers. And like now they're talking about, I think they just surpassed $1,000 billion companies. I don't know if you heard about that just recently. Over 1,000 companies now evaluated at $1 billion. But those, and that's a whole nother thing too. But yeah, there's way more entrepreneurs at a level of making $100,000 a year and paying their bills than there are at the other side of it.
Like you can get trapped in the algorithm, right? If the algorithm says the earth is flat for you, I get prompted this information left and right, and I will end up actually believing that the earth is.
You start going down that, you get sucked in that rabbit hole. And if all you see is like these guys talking about how they became rich overnight off the Bitcoin NFT type stuff, you could get sucked in that rabbit hole and thinking you're not worth it because you weren't able to do it. But there's so much behind those stories too. Like, especially with the entrepreneurs that talk about they made millions of dollars selling t-shirts or whatever. But in reality, like, yeah, they made millions of dollars, but it also cost them millions of dollars. So they're left with like 100 grand. There's so much context to these stories that, I wish more people would be transparent and real about their stories. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are going that direction. I think people are being more transparent on these social media platforms, more so on Twitter. Not trying to promote anyone more than the other, but Twitter, usually people aren't sharing pictures as much. It's more text based. Instagram, to get the clicks, you got to show those crazy, stats and numbers and dollar bills and all that stuff.